A blue tongue stretches like a fjord through the heart of the valley. By turns whipped by the winds, shrouded in haze, then shot through by a shaft of sunlight, the region oscillates between austerity and fragrant serenity. The paths, carved by wolves of yesteryear and lost wanderers in the Rizu forest, are haunted by an unusual melody, for here in the Joux Valley, the trees as well as the birds raise their voices in song. The region of Combiers, as it is called by its inhabitants, sitting on the high plateau above the Vaud plains, under the emblematic Vaulion Peak, is the fruit of a long peasant tradition. Today, its pastures still clothe the whole valley, and its farms bear witness to this centuries-long past. Cut off from the plains during the long white winters, these farmers learned to fill time in the slow months creatively. Music and singing are an integral part of their lives. Their celebrated choral groups continue to include a good number of farmers. Paradoxically, the poor soil and rigorous climate provided a stimulus for steady economic growth in the valley. Obliged to find occupations complementary to those of the farm, over the centuries, the people of Combiers evolved into skilled craftsmen. This was the source of the peasant watchmakers. Dials and hands they knew from clocks on the bell towers of their churches. These heavy mechanisms had been installed by foreign watchmakers, French, German, or English. The valley's very first watchmakers were perhaps farmers who ventured to repair the aging gear train of their church clock, whose foreign providers had long since disappeared. Iron was to be found in the region, and ironworkers had always excelled. Cutlers, locksmiths, and armorers knew well how to work the metal. This activity was a frequent supplement to agricultural duties. There was also regular contact with the Lake Geneva basin and with Neuchâtel, where the profession of watchmaker was well established and where the first apprentices from the Joux Valley would be trained. Although it is difficult to date the exact beginning of this exchange of knowledge, there are some very early indications, such as the 1693 clock signed by Moses Gollet of the Chenille. From the 18th century, watchmaking grew in the valley. Farmers set up workbenches on their farms, as can be seen still today at some master watchmakers in the valley. Philippe Dufour is amongst those who pursue and develop a tradition of knowledge in high-precision instruments. At the workshop of this craftsman from Soliat, trained at the technical school of the Joux Valley, we find old tools which he handles expertly. While the computer is of course useful in rigorous calculations, the basic techniques remain those of the past. A keen eye for minutiae, an ability to give form and beauty to tiny objects, and inventiveness are the skills which led gradually to the Combiers' reputation for excellent craftsmanship. But a further string to their bow is impossible to ignore: music. And part of its early origins is found in the Rizu forest. Here are spruces over 100 years old, whose wood provides a perfect resonance for musical instruments. But only a few of these thousands of trees have maintained the desired quality over the years of their growth, and those who can recognize them are rare. One of these is 80-year-old Lorenzo Pellegrini, who steals through the forest like a wood imp, a harvester of trees. When he finds a likely specimen, he will first embrace it, and then, with his head against the foot of the tree, he looks to see if the trunk has grown straight, encircling the precious, harmonious wood. the selected tree will serve as raw material for the lute makers. In the Brassus, Jean-Michel Capt uses it to fashion guitars of marvelous resonance. In their relative isolation, accentuated in winter, the Combiers people bond through music, an expression of their spiritual and patriotic values. It is said of them both that they are welcoming and distrustful of those not from the valley, open to new ideas and at the same time insular. Once a week since 1848, the Brassus chorale rehearses, uniting men who pass the candle from generation to generation. Harvested from nature, music permeated the daily life of the people of Combiers and has even infiltrated the mechanisms created by their hands. The Rocha brothers established in the Brassus in 1773 an enterprise specializing in the creation of automats which simulate beating wings and birdsong. These masterpieces would become renowned far beyond the valley, in Geneva and the entire world. The singing bird mirror, today a central attraction of the Château des Monts in the Locle, gives an idea of the amazement which it must have solicited at a time before sound recording existed. A subtle system of mechanically controlled pipes and bellows causes the birds to sing, their beaks opening in rhythm. The talented Rocha brothers overlooked no detail in giving life to their creations, even adding real feathers to the birds in the small automats. And sometimes a surprise. In the 19th century, the watchmakers of the valley refined their know-how, becoming masters of great complications, and set the standard for minute repetitions. In 1878, at the Universal Exhibition in Paris, Aimé Lecoultre-Piguet of the Brassus presented an exceptional watch, later dubbed La Merveilleuse, or the Marvel. It measures fifths of seconds with a perpetual date which takes leap years into account, showing phases of the moon and other functions such as an alarm clock and a thermometer. This timepiece is now in the collection of the Chaux-de-Fonds Museum of Watchmaking. At the Musée du Temps in Besançon, the most prestigious timepiece on exhibit is also from the Joux Valley, where its movement was created, while its decoration was applied in the Franche Comté. It bears witness to the fruitful collaboration between the Vaudois Jura and neighboring France, which has continued to this day. Made in 1878 and later enhanced with additional functions in 1900, the Le Roi 01 was deemed the most complicated watch in the world, a title it retained until 1933, when it was surpassed by the graves of Patek Philippe, whose movement was also born in the Joux Valley. Works of a refined aesthetic were produced, such as this watch with a Breguet regulator from the early 20th century. To the watchmaker's art was added that of many other professionals: engravers, enamelers, guilloche makers. This cultural heritage has not ceased to grow as the Joux Valley continues to nurture its tradition of excellence. Audemars and Piguet, two well-known names in the valley's world of watchmaking, merged in 1875, their work a pinnacle of great complications. Audemars Piguet created one of the world's slimmest watches, as well as the celebrated Royal Oak. The timepieces of Jaeger-LeCoultre provide further proof of genius in the Giro tourbillon, the reverso, and the Atmos, a pendulum developed in 1928 which self-winds automatically in perpetuity simply through atmospheric changes. Jaeger-LeCoultre still manufactures an updated version of this clock, whose basic concept remains as sound as ever. Another brand born in the Joux Valley, Dubois des Pras embodies the high level of quality characteristic of the region. Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, Blancpain are all brands anchored in the knowledge base of the Combiers. Watchmaking expertise taught at the technical school of the Joux Valley and substantiated in its production plants hails the future, spurred forward by inventiveness in quest of harmony.